Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you, as always, presented by our wonderful partners at Coolbet. If you're not yet signed up for an account at Coolbet, use the code LOCKSHOP when you sign up. You'll get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit up to $200. Make sure you're following all the Coolbet socials at Coolbet Canada on Twitter. We got the Lock Shop play of the day up there, trying to ride that Bo Bichette over 1.5 total bases tonight. He's done it in 10 of his last 13. It's got to happen, Huss.
I'm with you. Hey, listen, that was the first, I believe last week when I was doing the picks, we're kind of alternating weeks. The very first one that I did was Bo. And I sort of chickened out because I wanted to give, you want to give a winner and you got a plus number on over 1.5 bases, but did mention the homer. And man, the guy was hitting a homer every week. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be a fun game tonight to watch. A big one for the Blue Jays going up against the Rays. And one other quick Coolbet note, and I know we're going to get into this, is the CFL edition of the week. Normally, we do golf picks on Wednesday. Listen, there's not much going on in golf right now. The season technically starts now. I mean, I think for most people, it really starts in Hawaii after Christmas. But the Fortinet Challenge is this week. And our guy, Pat Gregoire, P. Greggy, who joined us earlier this week, he's got a great special. I really like this one in the Coolbet exclusives and the Coolbet specials. It's Max Homa, defending champion, who I believe is playing in the President's Cup next week. Our own guy, Canadian, and Coolbet sponsored Taylor Pendrith, who's been great and is playing in the President's Cup next week, along with Sahith Theegala, who a lot of people think might break through this weekend and finally win. All those guys top 20 at plus 1,400. So I jumped on that one. If you do want a little side action on the golf this weekend, but not go on a bunch of big outrights, an interesting option for you with, I think, a pretty good number at 14-1.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a big-time number at plus 1,400. So you can find that, as I said, in the Coolbet specials. While you're there, you can dabble in a little CFL. Just 3 games this week, week 15, and very interesting sort of study almost this week, and it kind of ties into what you were talking about with your season-long record. Huss has gone back and looked at all his picks. I'm going to have to find some time to do the same, but Huss, you're firing at 59% this year against the spread in the Canadian Football League, and you kind of learned a little something from this task, didn't you?
Well, yeah, and I mean, when we've, earlier through most of the CFL season, we'd been doing our CFL shows on Tuesdays, which meant that the lines came out on Monday, and certainly on Winnipeg Sports Talk every day, lots of CFL talk. And when we do our Coolbet lines, I always try and get them as soon as they come out and sort of talk about them, see if any sort of look particularly juicy or that they might move. And what I found is that there's been a real advantage by getting on these numbers, Monday night into Tuesday before many people bet on them and they change. I had a terrible week 1, if you recall. I didn't win a game. I think I may have actually gotten lucky picking an early number and got a push instead of a loss and was 0-3-1. But since then, I haven't had a losing week. I've had a bunch of 2-2s. But if your bad weeks are 2-2 and you're mixing in some 3-1s, I had a 4-0 a few weeks ago, another 3-1 last week. You can get into a good spot. So I'm right now 32-22-1 against the number after 15 weeks. But looking a little deeper into it, I can tell you just off the top of my head, and who knows, maybe there was one that went the other way as well. But I think there's probably 2 or 3 wins on that card for the season that might have been losses if I waited until closer to the game to bet the same side. So especially for people that are consistent CFL bettors and CFL fans, I think that there's real value if you get on the lines early, identify the ones that look good for you and get in on them, because even just today, we're seeing from when I made my bets last night on the CFL this week, we've seen a full point in the Ticats Bombers game, a full point in the Stamps Lions game, and a half a point in the Elks Riders game. So sometimes getting in early can pay. I mean, you don't have to bet them then if you don't like to, but if you know you're going to be on the games that week, and I'd say this goes the same for the NFL, although I think that probably there's more line movement quicker on NFL lines just because of the amount of people that are in on it. It can certainly help you out. So it's worked for me so far. I'd certainly suggest it. Taking a look at the Cool Bet lines on Monday night, and jumping on any lines that you think are good, because the bottom line is there's a good chance they might not be there or as good on Tuesday or Wednesday as you get closer to kickoff.
A perfect example is our picks this week. You got the Elks, you got the Ticats at 8.5. I like the Riders and the Bombers this week, so I liked getting them when that moved down to 7.5 earlier today. And then you got the Stamps at 6. I also like the Stamps, but I didn't get them till this afternoon, so I had to settle for the Stamps at 7 points. So you can kind of see how it varies. Let's start with the Elks and the Riders, Huss. And I've got some interesting notes on the Elks heading into this one, but you like the Elks plus the points on the right?
Well, I mean, I basically said I'm betting against the Elks at home and I'm betting on the Elks on the road. And I mean, listen, there's going to be some things that change around, that will affect that. It's not that simple. But honestly, I mean, I just spent the last 2 weeks watching the Riders, as did you, get thumped by the Bombers. And listen, I know they were much better and it was a much closer game in the Labor Day game in Regina, and this game will be in Regina. But as we mentioned, the Elks have been a completely different team away from home than they have been at home. And that's unfortunate for Elks fans right now. The thing about the Riders is they were pretty banged up. They had a lot of guys get sick. And I'm just looking at the injury report that they threw out. Now, Cody Fajardo's on it with non-football related things. He just had a kid, so he's going to be away for a couple
he had
days.
the baby, so yeah.
He might have the baby swag in that game. So that actually does make me a little bit nervous. I'm
citing baby swag here, buddy. Yeah.
But when I look at this, I mean, there are a whole bunch of guys coming out of the back-to-back series with the Bombers that are at best questionable, and many of them out. So I think the Riders are still dealing with a lot, both from illness as well as injury. And the Elks, maybe Taylor Cornelius is going to have a big game, considering he's got a new 2-year deal with the Elks after signing that. I have to admit, I was a little surprised. I thought that I'm not sure that Taylor Cornelius has done anything that shows that maybe he's the guy going forward. But if it's a reasonable number, they add another QB. We'll see what we get out of Trey Ford, if he plays very much or if Cornelius is the guy going forward. Bottom line is, this is a big, big number at 8 points. I don't trust the Riders at all, to be honest, to be covering any big numbers. And I think we've seen over and over again the Elks surprise people and cover with their 3 wins on the road, but also playing a much better brand of football. And hell, they've had some crazy backdoors in the fourth quarter as well. Even going from, can they cover 10 points to winning a game like they did in Montreal. So when I saw an 8 hung up with the Riders against Edmonton, with Edmonton on the road, I'm jumping on Edmonton, and we'll see how things go, especially considering a very lengthy injury report thrown out today by the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
We will have to see who cares about what more, Cody Fajardo and his new son, or Taylor Cornelius and his 2-year deal. You've got rival bumps going head-to-head here. It's a big number. I get it. I understand it. I'm still going to roll with the Riders here, minus 7.5. Here is a list of how many points the Elks have lost by this season by game. They've lost by 44, by 10, by 7, by 43, by 19, by 32, by 11, by 7, by 8, by 8, and by 28. They have not lost by less than 7 once this year. I mean, when they lose, they usually lose by 10 or more. And they've shown some signs here. Kevin Brown looks like he could be a legitimate running back in this league. Dylan Mitchell looks like a guy who could certainly ride shotgun with Kenny Lawler. I just think this Elks offensive line, I mean, Cornelius, if he stays in the pocket, he gets sacked, and he can move when he gets out of the pocket, but he's on the run for most of the game. I think this Riders defense is going to be all over Taylor Cornelius this week. So I'm going to take the Riders. I'm going to take them at home, and I'm going to take them minus 7.5 against an Elks team that has won some games on the road, but they have lost every single game this season by 7 or more, and it's sitting at 7.5. I need the Riders to cover like 1.5 here, and I'll be okay. So,
although I'll say this, after you just dropped it, 3 of their last 4 losses have been by 8 or less. So I've got 8 right now. I'm feeling good. Is there any way they could lose by 7.5 and have us both win? Maybe that number gets to 7.
Get the push and the win. Yeah, if that number. Yeah, yeah. You never know, right?
Obviously not on the 7.5, but you know what I'm saying. Hey, listen, I think that there is this is an intriguing game for a lot, and I think there is a potential maybe for a little bit of a letdown for Saskatchewan too, because I mean, as you well know, the energy in the last 2 games, the buildings. I mean, both the home game for the Riders at Mosaic and then the beatdown to the Banjo Bowl last week. They're fully expecting to win this game. I imagine the focus might not be where it is going into taking on the champs and their arch rival, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I will be interested to see if we the other thing I'll say is about the Elks, as bad as they've been this year, if they're not improving and they're not playing in closer games towards the end of this season, after everything they've been through, then what the hell are they doing? I mean, I guess there's probably many people that text into your show asking what the hell are they doing based on the season that they had so far. But I would think that Chris Jones will see some improvement. And as I said, I'm going to take them on the road +8 because that's the only place they've done any damage so far this year is away from Commonwealth Stadium.
All right, now here we get to the Ticats and Bombers. This line was 8.5 last night when Huss locked it in. It's now sitting at 7.5, which is good news for me because I do like the Bombers in this game. Huss, you said it, and I've taken your advice so many times. You don't get rich betting against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And let me just lay out the case. This is a bet against the Ticats, I guess. Yeah, I know, going on the road for the Bombers. The Ticats have lost to the Argos 3 times in the last 5 weeks, and each game it got worse. It was like 14, 17, and 20 points. So they haven't even been able to keep it within 2 scores against an Argos team that I don't think is anywhere near as good as the Bombers. The Bombers are coming in flying high after just absolutely dominating the Banjo Bowl. Outside of Toronto, maybe a sprinkling of Montreal, I mean, Hamilton and Ottawa, I know Ottawa's turned around a bit, but I just don't think they're in the same class. And you could look at it and go, Ticats looking for that Grey Cup revenge. I don't think it matters. I think the Bombers are such a better football team than the Ticats. And a lot of it just comes straight up to quarterback play. You've got the guy who's been the best quarterback in the league so far, especially since Rourke went down, going up against a work in progress, no matter who it is on the other side for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So I will take a steady and sometimes spectacular Zach Collaros over whatever they're going to roll out in Hamilton. So when I saw that number move and I saw it at 8.5, I was like, oh, maybe Huss is onto something here. Then I saw it at 7.5. I mean, I'd like to come down a little bit more, but I'll take it at 7.5 with the Bombers on the road.
Yeah. Listen, I had to go one way or the other, and this was as much a bet on the spot than, I think the Bombers have just finished the 2, certainly for the fan base and for the organization, 2 of the biggest games of the year. They are in cruise control right now at 12-1, all but assured of being the host team in the West Final again this year. And, if you look back both historically and even this season, the Bombers have often won games, but done it far closer than anyone expected, especially when they go east and play against some of the quote-unquote lesser teams in the league. It happened early on against Ottawa in the first couple of weeks of the season. The closest game of the year that they won all year was the game against Toronto earlier. And I know they did handle Hamilton quite well early on in the season, but again, that was in Winnipeg where the Bombers are pretty much unbeatable, minus that fluke of Mark Leggio that we had against the Montreal Alouettes. I am full disclosure, I'm super nervous about what the heck Hamilton throws out at quarterback. I mean, I bet them last week not knowing that Dane Evans would not be playing. And it's not like Dane Evans has been incredible or anything like that, but he's a competent CFL quarterback and probably a half decent one when he's not turning the football over, which has killed them so far this year. But those 2 dudes they threw out when he was out in the game against in the Labor Day game, whatever the last matchup against Toronto was, I mean, absolutely atrocious. And you just had to feel for the fans there at Tim Hortons Field. But listen, this is still, they still have a lot of great players on this team. I've got Orlando Steinhauer that I think is probably wondering how the hell they found themselves in this situation, looking up at Ottawa right now. And this is a massive game for Hamilton. Now, I still don't think they're going to win, but I think that as long as they don't have horrible quarterbacking, I think they can hang in these games, because the one thing the Bombers haven't been doing, with the exception of taking advantage of the Riders on Saturday and stepping on the throat, because I think they knew how much everyone would love it. Mike O'Shea just goes out to win football games. I mean, they don't need to win by double digits. They don't need to win by 20, even though they probably could if they had to. And the other thing is there's some significant injuries coming out of the game for the Bombers. Brandon Alexander could very well be back, which is a big addition, but you're already missing Greg Ellingson. Drew Wolodarski's been a big part of the thing. And I think at this point, if there are guys that are even close to being able to play or not play, the Bombers now have the luxury of sitting them out right now. So I rarely do go against the Bombers, but I just looked at that number, knowing the history of the Bombers going out east and playing in closer games, and thought that I would take the points with the plus 8.5. But as that number goes down, and what's interesting is that it did go down. I mean, I'll be honest, I was a little surprised. I'm not sure whether Coolbet's tracking my picks, and when I go in, I think that they go the other way. I'm joking, of course, about that. But if this game's in and around a touchdown, I think the Bombers are probably the smart money. But listen, when you're getting 8 and the hook right now, I don't know. I'm going to lean on the Ticats to at least make this one respectable. And but let me just say, there will be not even a sliver of a thought of the Ticats on the money line, because I don't think they're winning this football game.
I think you might have helped my case a little bit there when you said the Ticats will need something except atrocious quarterbacking. And right now, I don't know how they get anything but atrocious quarterbacking. So we'll see. I mean, it's a very interesting game because it's a pretty big number.
Well, and the whole Dane Evans thing was so weird. I mean, he practiced. They basically expected him to be the guy. And then all of a sudden we get to game day and he's throwing on the sidelines with his left hand. Like, he's a righty. So that's not a good sign.
With that being said, they might be thinking about switching it up.
Well, and you know what? And I'll say this, their defense played well in that game. I mean, they had a pick 6 to get them on the board and tie the game, and that was tied well into the second half. And, the Bombers certainly had their hands full with Toronto when they played them earlier on. Listen, these are two teams in different classes right now, but it doesn't always go the way you always assume it'll be on paper. So maybe we'll get a little bit of drama in the second half of this game, and the Ticats can cover a big number as a home underdog at 8.5.
All right, and one more game to get to. You got it last night at 6. I still decided to take it this afternoon at 7 when I locked in my pick sauce, and that is the Calgary Stampeders against the BC Lions team that is certainly not what they were in the first half of the season with Nathan Rourke, a healthy Nathan Rourke at quarterback. I mean, I knew he was good, but I thought this entire team was pretty good, and I mean, maybe they needed a few weeks to figure it out, but I think I might have been wrong on that. Maybe Vernon Adams. They already announced a few days ago he's going to be the starter straight from the start. They only took 3 possessions and had him in last game anyway. You might as well probably just have started him in that one as well. So maybe there's a Vernon Adams game coming here, but Calgary's a really good football team. Right now with Rourke hurt, Calgary's the second best team in the CFL in my opinion. They played the Bombers tough a couple of times. They lost to the BC Lions early in the year with Rourke 41-40. That was with Rourke. What could they possibly do to them at home here without Rourke? So for that reason, I mean, I'm okay with, I would have loved it where you got it at 6. I think I've seen it at 5.5 in a few places, but I'm okay with it at 7 as well.
Listen, Vernon Adams Jr. is going to be in. I'm excited to see what he can do for BC, and they're going to need him to have a great game. One thing I think we can count on is that Jake Maier is going to have a great game. He's got this opportunity to be the number 1 quarterback in Calgary. And unfortunately for Bo Levi Mitchell, I don't think he's turning back anytime soon. They dropped the 50 burger on the Elks last weekend. And I mean, they are really rolling right now. Jake Maier's having a lot of fun and showing that he could be one of the next great quarterbacks in this league. I do think it's a real tough situation for BC because they just played so well through those first 9 games, getting to 8-1. And it was all around Nathan Rourke. Not that they don't have great players, and they were able to get those great players because of how cheap their quarterbacking was this year, which was a real key advantage in a salary cap world. But things have sort of regressed to the mean now without Rourke in there. And listen, I know they didn't start Vernon Adams Jr., and I kind of think that was a smart move. I mean, I was on Montreal last week. I didn't think it would be as lopsided as it was, but I don't think it would have been smart, even though they did put him in for a bit, to kind of get him in a pressure cooker right where he was just traded for in a bit of a revenge game scenario. And I think it maybe puts him in a better position to have success. I guess the reason why I'm taking the favorite here is I think he's going to have to have a ton of success if they want to cover this number against the Calgary Stampeders, because we remember that game, the 41-40 win for BC. I mean, they were down double digits in the fourth quarter. I mean, Nathan Rourke came back, and listen, once you have that done to you, I think you remember it and do what you can to avoid it. And you certainly don't take the foot off the gas like maybe happened in that game before. And of course, Jake Maier is the quarterback right now. So the way this Calgary offense is rolling, coming out of the back-to-backs against the Elks, playing at home, I'm going to lay the points and take the favorites, the Calgary Stampeders, to win by a TD.
Calgary Stampeders run the football so well. When Kadeem Carey is healthy, Kadeem Carey and Peyton Logan, in my opinion, are the best 1-2 punch at running back in the Canadian Football League. Kadeem Carey averages almost 7 yards per game. Peyton Logan I'm talking per carry. Peyton Logan also averages 6.5 yards per carry. And even Dietrich Mills, when Kadeem Carey was out, Dietrich Mills stepped in and averaged 6.5 yards per carry. Like, Calgary can run the football. Then you mix in Jake Maier, who's looked pretty steady, but he hasn't had the big one yet. Right? Like, he's picked up a victory, 1 touchdown here against Edmonton. And I mean, a lot of it is because they can run the ball in so well with a guy like Kadeem Carey. But I think Jake Maier might be due for a big one here, and it could come against the BC Lions. So I'm with Huss on the Calgary Stampeders, but just 3 games, so a little bit of a shorter episode here, but lots of good action. I'm going to be in Regina on Friday, then a quick flight on Saturday to Calgary to do the Stamps and Lions as well. I'm very much looking forward to both of these games. I think it'll be a good time.
Well, this will be good. And this game between BC and Calgary is huge. Like, BC's got those 2 games at the end of the year. I mean, if they're able to win this game and get to 9-3 and hand Calgary their 5th loss, including their 2nd loss head-to-head, they give themselves an incredible opportunity to still host that West semi. And again, I'm not sure if anyone is realistically holding out hope that Nathan Rourke comes back at the end of the season and can play in the playoffs. I guess that will remain to be seen. But I can tell you straight up, the BC Lions will have a much better chance of winning that football game if they can do it in the comfortable quarters of BC Place, as opposed to moving out in November in Calgary with who knows what you can get during the with the weather right now. So definitely the game of the week is this one between Calgary and BC. I do like Calgary, though, just with their running, and your comment about the running game is clearly right. I mean, this is as good of a 1-2 punch as we've seen in a long time.
I think it is
in the CFL.
Peyton Logan's
I mean,
good,
listen,
man.
Andrew Harris has been great. We've seen some other guys, but Logan has been, incredible. And not just running the football, but his versatility. That game against the Bombers, he was getting like double digits per catch, and they were throwing to him repeatedly outside of the in the backfield. So I like what Calgary's doing right now. They do actually make me nervous. It's so difficult to beat a team 3 times in a year, never mind 4. And I think that if Calgary can get to Winnipeg, although I love Bombers, like in the cold, in November, in the playoffs, they'll be a favorite. But I don't think there's many Bomber fans that just feel it's a fait accompli that they'll be there in the Grey Cup. That is going to be a tough out, especially as Jake Maier gets more experience and more confidence winning football games the way he has been so far. So double duty for you this weekend. 3 games on the CFL slate. And we had a close one last week. So close. Ottawa, you were probably just getting ready for the game in the press box. You wouldn't have seen it. But,
I missed a lot of that one,
Ottawa had the ball right down around the 10-yard line on that final drive that would have put them ahead and won the football game. And they just couldn't get it done. And they ended up losing. And that prevented a 4-0 week. But see if we can keep this mojo rolling into the week in the Canadian Football League. But to be honest with you, I won't be thinking about any of these games until we get to Friday, because now that this show is in the books and we've made the bets in the CFL, it's all about tomorrow's show and tomorrow's game in the NFL between my Chiefs and the Chargers. Game of the week, and we get it a little early.
Cannot wait. It's going to be an absolutely huge game, and we're going to get you ready on Thursday morning around 11 o'clock Mountain, 12 o'clock Winnipeg time. We'll be live again with another episode of The Lock Shop, getting you ready for Thursday night. Had a nice start last Thursday, and we're gonna try to do that again this week. So if you've not yet signed up for an account at CoolBet, make sure you do. CoolBet.com. Use the bonus code LOCKSHOP. When you sign up, you get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit up to $200, and you'll be locked and loaded, ready to go for Thursday. Buddy, we'll talk to you then.
You got it, folks. Enjoy.